Hello, America. This is a video regarding actually recorded reality, in other words, regarding fentanyl problems and regarding the other types of drugs and how they have them separated, individually grouped and together. They have roles with the people that count the locations they counter know as hospitals, like Hartford Hospital, other intercities medical locations in Connecticut and interstates that have roles with people connected to various natures of courts and their family members. They've been sticking fake things into databases to hide live progressions, and that is an outcome slash S maintained needed by them for what I caught them doing with child school campuses in conjunction simultaneously in collusion with colleges and universities, fire campuses, medical campuses. One thing it is an identity theft slash fraud method against every single American, is overtly slash insidiously. So obviously, when they use black and white or black and whatever color they use to describe us as the formerly, as the interstate voices, they're using physical delusions juxtaposed with criminally foreign influenced qualities of fact treatment nature, aspects of fact treatment nature, relevant to where and how criminal insidiousness is relevant. So, for example, they have the DEA, they have the FBI. Former director of the FBI has co-defendants who are recorded involved with federal crimes with drugs, various natures of drugs and uses of how there are different types of drugs with little kids since I was a kid. And they've been attaching other little kids to fake locations with the kids, including their own, juxtaposed with them. They let some of the kids have roles with drugs, and they have ties to doctors. But in other words, they've been involved. Even the police explorers is involved, intercities, uses of corner town lines and stuff like all little distinctions they used to make mistakes. They've been making mistakes since founding. In other words, when they bring up the hospitals, it's going to overrun our hospital capacity. Of course, it's going to overrun the hospitals were put in place by a system that designed the suburbs to cause negative value, nature, progression, vaccinations before our founders were even born. They already tactically denatured the ground's identity of relationship to itself and sustained that to divide Native Americans from Native Americans and to cultivate those divisions, blamed on other things, others ourselves, even when correctly, exactly the way the breaching method wanted and needed to keep that defended, to keep logic and apart from how it is supposed to be led by that which is actually hyper simultaneous, that which is the value of what is simultaneous to logic, to the mind, how we think. See, they're preventing all the revelations that come from using what is simultaneous from being demonstrated. So they have lack of diversity, and or they have simultaneously, they have diversity narratives employed effectively by a breaching method, criminally foreign influence, simultaneously delusions raw. So they are they have prevented offensively people from countering identity, natures of identity theft, fraud, slander roles, including how they have the black people and all the other, people are the same, they have Italians and black people in collusion with identity thefts and frauds instances as the interbranch families. They don't have integrity. So they've been switching names. The police officers switch names. They use all kind of crime methods where have people call in complaints, and then they go and they write cover up for the lie progressions because they are needing to hide from and hurt people's actually means to sense and reveal answers to things properly. So they are preventing and having prevented us calm speech. Calm means to have calm speech. So, for example, they have CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News knowingly they know they want and need as a human to be calm, be able to make a calm protraction of logic, but they are also fake and with physical delusions, and then they pretend it's personal when you note such, because they're also offensively preventing and having prevented mandated law. They use their Facebook pages for this. They use criminally foreign influence readings of statutes that leave out exceptions where they can't be sued, but they can be, because they've been roles using Facebook to posit illusions to hide what is actually recorded in cases. They've been using the locations and their family members, even judges' family members have been using their courts and all that came before them to hide their life progressions, hide their actually recorded natures, because though their natures themselves were used and having been recorded other than they pretend them to be. So there's a problem with the hospital. There's a problem with fentanyl and with the other kinds of drugs, because they have all kinds of they have mental health doctors who prescribe mental health medication pills on people. They've been using that as a torture method before the World Trade Center attack. The World Trade Center attack was effectively used to keep those locations in collusion with it. So Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Afghanistan, they had roles with drugs crimes with Wethersfield police before the World Trade Center attack. Intercities, on and off Central Connecticut State University, on and off Trinity College, on and off other colleges and universities I went to and didn't. I mean, I didn't go to. In other words, and I didn't go to, like Middlesex Community College too. I went to. They have people from Middlesex Community College involved with Wethersfield Police recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed there's a Ray Cololo involved with them forging and switching names. Now, his father has the same name. But before that, too, there's a, I mean, this has been way long time, but there's a Phil Cololo also having been brought up. Phil Cololo was brought up by a Bob Chase where and how they use arrests to have people speak fake conversations with the people they arrest when they have to hide life progressions, because they were the ones that were involved with what they were needing to pretend they were countering. So they've been blaming innocent people since founding. They've been making, sustained roles with juxtaposed natures of organized crime at locations, as the people too that complain about others in that after they've sustained that, and then they leave that out. They leave out exceptions and exception nature. See, exceptions and exception nature are important to where and how we make positive and negative treatments. This is how nature wants and needs us to think. So they have people who have been attaching me to fake conversations with themselves since I was a kid, because they have kids who were in my schools, weren't in my classes. They're behind my backs pretending they knew me with people tied to them, who all have ties to people on my street, in my area. Then they pretend that's personal when I bring them up. They brought them up. So like Jamie Smith and David Smith have roles with wire crimes with Wethersfield Police with their mother and with men tied to her mother through time, involved with some untimely deaths with ecstasy. That the Wethersfield Police, the families that own that run the phones for the Wethersfield Police, they have roles with drug crimes, federal crimes with evidences with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and other agencies and military police with Wethersfield Police Department. So the Marines also have roles with their Facebook pages, with identity theft frauds, slanders, little coward punks that will identity theft clicks with the military police, their family members, switching and forging names of MPO Floyd and a KKK, that's a black MPO military officer, and a KKK Confederate flag themed bunch of them, and like a Justin Levinsky, I don't know his brother's name, but his brother and Joshua Stryker are involved with houses on Fairlane, in the corner of Fairlane and Griswold Street, with confessions in the past tied to them from other people. I don't know the word. They do confessions, and then people pretend they know each other. So this Joshua Straker's involved on Trinity College with deans switching and forging names, as people involved with former director of the FBI criminally, leading up to a 2006 district court case in it. And since they've been using the campuses to plant fake evidences, they've been using the media locations. WFSB, Fox Connecticut News, and WTNH also have recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with child sex offenders and drugs crimes with drug dealers and uses of the different types of drugs at Wethersfield parks, at Wethersfield schools. Same thing at Hartford parks and schools. And they have the mayors and their family members how involved with this. And so they have the lawyers at Wethersfield town offices. They have the election spots like religious locations. They also have the sense and sensibilities of people tied towards religious locations, offensively pretending, to perceive, making lies and allegations about what people say rather than using their actual statements in the actual context they were said in. That's another reason why and how they sequence shift so much, because they're defending, made up, or they were making conspiracy theories and no evidence. And while then they made them rely on that. Then they have to start faking evidence. They have to start faking conversations with people. So there are two people with the name Brendan Leahy involved also with some upskirt natures as doctors, involved with doctors as with badges too, that are personally involved with prosecutors and judges and their family members, putting fake things in databases, with physical delusions as doctors, and with drugs and medicines crimes with little kids. Now, the more and more that goes on, the more and more they're going to value fentanyl as a means to kill people and blame it on other things other than themselves. What really leads to the most murders, the most is everyone needed to hide lie progressions. Why would people be killing others on that mass scale like that? We have shootings and things like that if they weren't trying to hide something. In other words. And it's recorded that they've been trying to hide something, using roles with that. Then they make fights between people and they lie about their perception of both sides of the people and their motives. They say, "Oh, that's their motive." Oh, well, let's have a case to find out. They're preventing cases from having the right outcomes because of offensive evidence reception, racketeering worse than war crimes. Offensive data reception, racketeering worse than war crimes. Offensive identity reception worse than war crimes. There is a lack of diversity because the people still in that trap, which they call urban living, that is unacceptable. The suburbs were designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures from a tactically denatured base. Honesty reveals this. You don't even have to be a scientist. See, but we have people that will deny this offensively. And, in the news, we have to have, and so then they play little tricks where they say, "Oh, we're not real news journalists, we're just opinions." But they're making opinions dishonestly. They're hiding. CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News are hiding how they have the people who answer the phones for them, people who run their Facebook pages. They have them involved furthering passions and emotions crimes of people against others. And then when they respond to them, they're lying about the nature of their response. They're lying about the significance of the response. They're lying about the response and just replacing it with summaries of what they said. Oh, then they pretend people can't speak. You have a bunch of little fakes who can't speak because now they're adults and they were raised attaching people to fake locations, spreading lies about people. These are medical doctors with badges at Hartford Hospital, other hospitals across the cities and states, and across the country, the world. So America confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed. They have rules with drug crime methods with China and with other countries, forced self-value rules with it. And they call each other names, blame each other. Oh, well, the fentanyl is coming from China or Mexico. They're furthering it. And then they have people, oh, we're countering this transnational group. They're making them groups. They're leaving out where and how in Mexico. The schools are the same thing. They have the students and family members there, and the parents and kids. They have people shared here and there at our campuses. They are kept needing to hide live progressions tied to that. So leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since, people involved with overt criminal enterprises, plural, private ones, and the countries as criminal enterprises. I have also had roles with predicate acts through that and in the 9/11 context. So the World Trade Center has roles with investigators like associated with insurance companies. They investigate things after bad things happen. They keep on blamed on other things, others ourselves. What really caused negative value nature progression to acts of nature, even when they respond to them correctly, because this has been going on since before anyone was born here. This has been intercampuses, intersystems, but they have the database relationships simultaneously. So the campuses have been kept needing to hide the same things tied to the uses of their databases, but is paralleled with criminally foreign influence uses of private databases. And they are shown through time more and more how they have to need to hide what they were actually worth in doing and with databases and with data reception, evidence reception, identity reception, sequence reception, the value of simultaneous reception. See, the value of what is simultaneous can answer our questions. What was slavery caused by? And you look what was simultaneous with witch trials. How come we never use the value of what is simultaneously the cause of witch trials and slavery, sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly? And that will show you how the grounds identity of relationship to itself and its system as our own, unabridged, as our means to positive value nature progressions or negative value nature progressions. They've been forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to self-value roles with and as negative value nature progressions, actions, pretending other things, others. So then they pretend positive is their right and need to speak calm. They're preventing people from speaking calm. And they're only speaking calm dishonestly, getting over on where and how our nature wants us to speak calm and or to have to use emotions like in other words to raise our voice, to correct, in other words, and opposite them how they want it used and need it used. So Wethersfield Police has a police chief, Cintron, and there was one years ago. I don't know the name of him, and there was the transition from him to the new one, which is Cintron. And I don't know who the new one is now, but Cintron was a police chief for years. His daughter, and Reno Mazzucato, I don't know his brothers and sisters' name, and their parents are involved with Mazzucato Bakery. And with people with modern pastry tied to a Fred Grisette. For example, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed as one of the people who went to private schools who were involved with courts, judges, and prosecutors planting evidences on public schools with them, uses of them, putting illusions, identity theft, fraud, slanders, narratives. And they make it look real like that. And they lock the sense and sensibilities of everyone hearing information through others. And, we'll leave this out when you say that. And then then they have investigators, even calling like a O'Brien family calls the police, tells on people for what they did. Like a Tim O'Brien called the police as a police family when he was a little kid in grammar school. 911 hung up. Then he blamed it on my sister because she had heard that someone did that. In other words, it has something to do with it. These are the names they brought up. This the O'Brien family is also involved with Sandy Hook, Newtown. So in Sandy Hook, Newtown has a whole bunch of medical racketeering with kids and with courts that also have it against elderly, every people of every age, and their physical delusions. So they've been preventing this from being reported, and they've been lying to Judge Napolitano. They've been lying to Judge Janine in or with them, and with Fox News, MSNBC, CNN. So this is also WFSB, Fox Connecticut News, and WTNH, with houses on Church Street in Old Wethersfield, and with their uses of the corner, and people associated with the corner of Church Street and Main Street in Old Wethersfield. And all the way from there, right from there, draw one little short line, and you go to the witch trial place in Wethersfield, Connecticut, right where George Washington had to come, draw another little short line from the corner of Church Street and Main Street in Old Wethersfield. And that's where George Washington had to come and leave slavery entrenched in Wethersfield, the North, too. Not just this part of the North. And right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, he had to counter-extort the people still entrenched, involved with that, with the breaching methods, slavery system against everyone. Sickly distinctly, too, effectively having kept everyone blaming other things, others, or ourselves, what the breaching method did, sickly, non-distinctly against everyone. So where that is positive value, rather than have it valued, they have a whole bunch of types of experts, A through Z, at countries A through Z, who can't defend themselves and afford. They can't. What is actually recorded to be discerned. The actual value of them when they smile, the actual value of them when they pretend anger on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. So, of course, New Jersey's sickly, distinctly a victim from New York City. Fake sites. Never had. Too much time went by and they left this rat trap. And what it causes, blamed on other things others themselves because they self-value roles doing that. That's what precedents taught them to do. So the title of a video I put a link to in this video has President Trump telling Joe Rogan not to apologize. In other words, for using N-word. But he didn't use it in the way, I'm not telling anybody to use the N-word. I'm saying that's recorded, an excuse they've been using to pretend passions and emotions regarding what they say, to hide what came before that, and to prevent counters to where and how the white power cliques, including the military police that are KKK, Confederate flag themed, including the people associated with the attorney generals. The state's attorneys. The prosecutors. They're involved with those cliques. Oh, but that's undercover, and get out. They don't have integrity. They don't have integrity to be undercover. So they have all kinds of crime methods with the mental health and psychology people, psychiatry people, physical delusions wrought simultaneously. So they are incapable of speaking for the function of emotions and passions properly. They are incapable for speaking for the need for our nature to have the ability to calmly defend ourselves or calmly speak unaccosted. See, they have been preventing this offensive evidence racketeering. What was slavery about? It was about roles still criminally foreign influenced with the law, as all tied to it. Because the law deals with, medicine, everything. Everything was part of that torture method that forced people to blame other things, others themselves, with the breaching method caused slavery. With the breaching method caused, therefore, actually what left the people unforsaken. Oh, but the value, it's too expensive to fix it. Well, that's because we have entertained what value systems that are criminally foreign influence. Delusions wrought, torture involved to prevent the Constitution. So they have each of the online companies sickly distinctly affronts to people's free speech and people's health and people's identities. And they're pretending others sickly distinctly, and they're getting away with it because all the media sources, no one will follow mandated law while they simultaneously pretend other. They got and get away with it because of all the fake things put in databases ahead of time and uses of that. They use crime methods where they have parties and they time it where someone's going to come and walk there and people are going to see their name and hear their name. And they're going to think that they know the people, like a Joshua Schumack involved with his mother. I don't know his father's name, but there are some sheriffs and people have 3 spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike and where the Wethersfield Police Department is now. And, there's involved with them with fabricating audio and video, identity theft, fraud, slanders, evidence crimes that are verbal, and identity theft, fraud, slander. So anyone who knows this Joshua Schumack and or his mother from Wethersfield and a Mike Pandolf, there's a Pandolf's auto body in New Britain. Mike Pandolf, and he has other brothers involved with them on and off Trinity College and on and off CCSU roles with federal crimes with professors I have behind my back and with their kids, where they had their kids involved and their father, like the father of a professor I had has his son, and Mike Pandolf has one of the people involved with one of the Saudi families they attached to roles forced with them with predicate acts. And they don't have the sophistication to understand how to counter fact-cheating or the significance of fact-cheating nature-oriented predicate acts, wrongdoing, sequence shifts, identity theft, fraud, slanders. So everyone knows such on a mass scale. Everyone's lying about the motivations of others. Everyone keeps wiping out. If people say fake news, news predicate acts. I'm using news predicate acts rather than fake news because the principles, the president said that. So the states, locations, areas, they pretend, we're just copying what the president says. News predicate acts are recorded fake news acts that have been involved with the elections, locations, uses, including with the Wethersfield Police Department, fire departments, Hartford fire departments, West Hartford, the places they went to school. That's not by accident. In other words, how they use each age of family member to hide lie progressions against strangers that they're going to be around them. In other words, they have influences over and people influence at each location, like campuses of each age and nature. They are compromised. In other words, well, the kids need to interact. There are plenty of ways to have kids have better education than they were getting. They have their education obfuscated. They have the identity, the sciences share, where it's perfect right there, consolidated. The subject, the sciences individually grouped and together, demonstrating their shared identity. Rather than have that revealed, they had that obfuscated to themselves too. That's part of the reason they got so sick and pretend not to realize it. And so they're getting away with it by increasingly using what other people said, including the formal interbranch into databases. And with their stories, they've been using the stories of WFSB, Fox Connecticut News, WTNH, all kind of wire crimes, including with their phones. So they've been using them to hide lie progressions, to hide their actually recorded natures, no criminal insidiousness. Because they're also, there's uses of their natures. When they speak for positive or negative, when they're speaking about drugs treatments, like fentanyl, and or like regular drugs, and or like medicines that people need to live, actually. They've been hiding lies and lie progressions. So we have to counter the various natures of courts and their family members with crimes, with overt gangs drugs, and with the drugs and medicines of mental health. They're pretending to help people with mental health drugs. They've been torturing them since before the World Trade Center attack. No, then they put torture and with it. They took away the Constitution's surface values, unabridged. So they're still abridged. The Constitution was supposed to get unabridged. We're supposed to have Marbury versus Madison. Real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. So instead of doing that, they're pretending it means other than it does. They're switching and forging names to pretend they had credibility when they didn't. That's not what it meant. They know that. So we have little punk interpretations of critical things by the critical leaders, not by accident. So you need to follow mandated law. Please follow mandated law for them. Anybody, just pick a name. I mean, say, get me a name. Get Anthony Wall a name. For the courts, the British Superior Court, Hartford courts, Middletown courts, involve switching and forging names, fabricating evidences with overt criminal enterprises, Los Solitos, people associated with the body dumping spot of Billy Grasso, who are also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed even on Facebook. A Fianza family on Two Rod Highway is also involved with the houses next to the state judicial branch offices. With a Kevin Dillon, who's also involved on my street with crimes with kids through time. And with his wife, Anna Dillon, involved with them also with criminally foreign influence uses of real estate companies, criminally foreign influence uses of investigations and of investigators to hide predicate acts. To hide, in other words, and they start fights between people too. Wethersfield police brought up Ray Law into their switching names and forging names like 10 months ago. I still can't get a response from them. They keep hanging up and switching and forging names and making more names involved that way too. Then they pretend allegations. Oh, they're making conspiracy theories. They're not listening. They're not responding to actually what people say, purposely to get them mad, purposely to have them shut up, and then they adapt. So they have all kinds of natures of abuses of kids and roles with the abuses of them, uses of others remotely and their own kids. So there are locations on all sides of the Wethersfield High School. And there are locations on sides of other schools that have connections and roles with the uses of the fentanyl. Even though I've never seen them with fentanyl, they have juxtaposed natures of different drugs crimes and medicines crimes roles as fact, human nature-oriented roles with where and how police reports are involved with such things. And with such body dumping spots, other natures of crimes juxtaposed simultaneously relevant. So all that is having been applied against American citizens. They even have fentanyl reported in weed now, in marijuana, by Fox News, MSNBC, or CNN. One of them reported that. See, they are an array in collusion as A through Z opinions offensively affront to prevent mandated law. And they are using that, the police forms, to pretend that, to discredit people on Facebook, to discredit people on YouTube, to discredit people on platforms, with internet companies, where their voices can be heard. So they have Wethersfield elections and elections locations through time involved with identity theft, fraud, slander. They even attach family members to fake conversation with family members and criminally foreign influence readings of statutes that leave out, like, for example, where they have readings of statutes where you can lie about your opponent, apparently, as political opponents. But they left out and leave out exception nature, where you can't lie about your opponent if you were doing it before the election And if it's in collusion with other natures of organized crime, other natures of drug crimes with kids, child abuses, elderly abuses. They have elderly homes in Wethersfield and intercities involved with people. And then their narratives, fake positive and negative. They go to visit people. I go to visit other people I know there, like Johnny Duke, people on his neighbors, right next to Trinity College, John Galuchin or whatever. He has a brother apparently, or a cousin or something. I believe it's a brother with Central Connecticut State University. Now there's an Alan Nielsen that Tim O'Brien years ago confessed, demonstrated, recorded, said was one of the ones involved on Route 3 with him and his family, with Hartford Police, Wethersfield Police. These are also people involved with Newtown, Sandy Hook. There's a family of police farms and named O'Neill. Wethersfield Police have an O'Neill, and they have a wife named O'Neill involved with the principal sex offenders campus, with more than and now involved with that. There are people with the name Leahy involved with it. They're involved with upskirt natures, pictures of other little kids, and pictures of their own daughter, like with an angry face they put on Facebook against me. Her father and her mother had fake conversations with me, and her grandfather, one of the daughters apparently of one of the Brendan Leahy's, who since I was a kid, from not around me, from behind my back, was pretending to have conversation ties to me with people tied to my street, with the Wethersfield Police, criminally involved with them since they were kids, child abused by such, and made to self-value roles with it. So there's a Colon family involved with police farms and their family that deal with drugs, whether legally or criminally. They are criminally involved with it, with various natures of drug crimes, including medicines, drugs, with this Leahy family, and with the Wethersfield Police, forging and switching names with them. So pick a name and sequence for Wethersfield Police and respond for them, because they've been using the wire crimes with their phones too, tied to their wire crimes with the internet, tied to their wire crimes with WFSB, Fox Connecticut News, and WTNH. In a whole bunch of ways, these people over here are involved with them on the corner of Church Street and Main Street in Old Wethersfield, and all along that route to Central Connecticut State University through time has been people that used their ties to locations all the way around along that route to attach me and others to fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people, fake words, not by accident, because then they exploited that time at Central Connecticut State University, leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since, from Connecticut, used remotely. And as they did with the Ninth Circuit Court right next to the World Trade Center, right before the attack, they post-dated documents from inside the Ninth Circuit to appear late to the panel of judges. And then all that time had to be proven, and that led to a 2006 district court case in Connecticut now. So Connecticut District Court, various superior courts, and probate courts. Probate courts are involved with elderly homes now. Simultaneously, they're involved with drugs and medicines crimes as mental health care people. Delusions, rock, criminally foreign influence with them. In other words. So they're preventing people legitimate, and then they use phrases like mental health that we have to use as regular people. And they're making it like they're experts on mental health. They're criminally foreign influence, delusional. How can they be an expert? They have in other words. And so these are also some intercultural, interreligious people that use that. They pretend to perceive prejudice and things like that by offensively making statements and confessions and with physical delusions. And then pretending people lying about the nature of the response, making fake responses to it when people don't respond to them. They pretend people are not cooperative with the police as an offensive means to prevent people from, to simultaneously, worse than this, but simultaneously to prevent people from having the right to remain innocent and simultaneously while torturing and measuring how they're going to react, where and how they know they need to hide live aggressions. So Sandy Hook Newtown has been involved with crimes with their patients and criminals at locations before they got caught. And then they've been using them to hide live aggressions. They use the way they speak to measure and maintain what people are going to, how they're going to react to certain things, to leave out what came before that. In other words, they painted themselves in corners, everyone. So it's ridiculous. And they have a woman who leads the DEA. She's smiling about, oh, well, see, what I did, we measured these countries have the fentanyl, and then the gangs with New Jersey, Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act. Robert Luskin was the standing chairperson of the FBI on Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, the RICO Act. And as people involved recorded, as actually recorded, with the transition from ACA to RICO, and then from RICO with the Patriot Act, is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with their physical delusions and their criminally foreign influence predicate acts delivery system methods, criminal insidiousness nature delivery system methods, roles. So they have a certain kind of victim, where and how people are referred to as a color, and not for legitimate, oh, this guy was black, or this guy was right at the corner, and the other guy ran by him. You know what I mean? It's not like a regular description. This is a fake identity. You guys are forcing people who are of a certain type or persuasion only to speak for those type. Oh, I have black pigment. Only I can speak for black people. Not going per the metaphysics. In other words, so they're preventing people who aren't classified as black from speaking about how that can't be entertained in the metaphysics of the law, valued properly. So in other words, if you're entertaining black and white distinctions, if you're entertaining the ground locations, if you let honesty speak unaccosted, the ground locations are tactically denatured, designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And just by admitting that, space means come out of nowhere, and we could adapt and put temporary locations. And we get involved between the negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures between people, countering the negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures causes themselves before they become more and more through other motivations, natures, needs, interests, only capable of being. Nature is going to keep demonstrating negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures because we are no longer its system, using its system. So they have a black female judge and they have a white female judge with New Britain Superior Court who's been fabricating audio and video rolls, also with female and male states attorneys, and all kind of medical tied to the courts, like New Britain Superior Court has male and female judges, including white and black female judges involved with hate crimes, federal crimes with KKK, Confederate flag themed, and black military officers involved with Wethersfield police switching, forging names, pretending fake ties and natures of ties to people online too. So there's a Justa Glavinskas too, as one of the ones confessed by a girl I don't know the name of, who knew my name. She wasn't even in my grade, at Stop and Shop in Wethersfield. It used to be a food mart. There are when it was a food mart, there was a manager of the store, and there's one now, like the Smith family, involved with the families that answer the phones for the police through time, with drugs and medicines crimes, untimely death rolls. Untimely death rolls were brought up to me by Rob Rodriguez, where and how they use confessions about things to make it sound like they knew them before that. They had conversations with them before that. In other words, Robert Rodriguez is one of the ones on my street involved with federal crimes with Wethersfield Police and some logistics places per him, and places in Rocky Hill, police forms in Rocky Hill, associated with the shopping centers and with the corner of Town Line Drive and South State Highway through time. So rather than forcing people to be collusion with them and make descriptions of people without leaving their actual words and statements, follow mandated law. Make sure I get a name for them interbranch too, because they have mayors. They have a former mayor, Gold, involved with a Joe Aiello, a whole bunch of people tied to a Joe Aiello, involved with child abuses, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, falsified police reports, drugs and medicines crimes with people on my street and tied to them, gun crime rolls, and people like all along that route from Wethersfield to Central Connecticut State University into Britain. No, on and off Central Connecticut State University into Britain, Paul Manafort Drive, which is on the south side of it, and the other sides of the campuses. They've been timing. People walk by and they say something. There's a Jen Sosa involved with some probate court judges, family members, and sexual circles that are involved with identity thefts and frauds with them. And then they grew up to be in the intelligence community, having already planted what they can't afford to discern now. You know, remote uses of their parents too, and their roles intercities with locations. So there's people on Two Route Highway, where it runs into Hangdog Lane and the Borough Turnpike, involved with a Phil Kalal, further involved with the principal sex offenders campus, and with the various natures of courts and their prosecutors and their family members involved with it then and now, and with the Wethersfield Police Chief's daughter, Jessica Cintron, and her husband, Reno Mazzucato, reportedly, and his brothers and sisters and families. Also involved with the people involved at the corner of Elm Street and Route 3 in Rocky Hill. Also with Eric Oliveri and Craig Oliveri and a Joshua Stryker. I never had a conversation with Craig Oliveri or Joshua Stryker. And the Eric Oliveri, his roles with them having pretended other, made an exception at his house. One time I saw him at his house, which is on Route 3 too. Where it's on the street touching. You can see it from Route 3 when you come over the bridge. In other words, so they have roles with houses on my street that have been attaching me to fake locations, fake words, fake ties to themselves, fake natures of ties to themselves through time. So the whole bunch of intelligence community people associated with Elm Street and Rocky Hill and along Route 3, right through cities. All along Route 3 are people involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, instances in the past where they went out of the way as strangers to me to pretend other. All exception dates are a demonstration of the same thing. So mandated law is not being followed. You can't just call the police and have them follow the law and have them fix where and how they didn't. And that's what's actually recorded, because they already painted themselves putting fake reality into databases. So they have roles with those other countries involved here. They have the Los Solitos involved on off Trinity College, on off UConn. Also drugs and medicines crimes with people that graduated from there. And they have lawyers involved, criminally involved too, crime methods. They can't defend themselves regularly. So they have to value roles with the judges and prosecutors putting fake things in databases because they're family members, and the ones of the lawyers kept neat live progressions, actually recorded reality, wire crime acts, methods, roles, etc. So respond also for Wethersfield campuses, and for the ones intercities involved, like Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College. The name switching and forging is all kinds of ways they use that. So it's not by accident we have problems with all these distinct types of things killing people, like fentanyl, different kinds of drugs, overt criminal enterprises, killers, including where and how the guns have, the cops have gun crime roles with making warrants criminally foreign influenced, to use them to hide their live aggressions, to hide what they use their kids for. So respond for the Wethersfield Police Department, and respond for, you know, these companies that are going to pretend to be against hate speech or whatever, dishonestly. You know, do what's right, mandated law. YouTube, give me the name of who denies that this is mandated law. Give me the name for the Wethersfield Police. One, they've been switching and forging names. Who denies what I said? Who denies anything I said as Wethersfield Police or in the Britain Superior Court, Hartford Courts, Middletown Courts? Let's go. I caught them with the principal child abuser first note, and they hid this. And I was forced by, they charged me with harassment by fabricating emails to switch how the communications were over the phone. So they put fake emails, and they never let me communicate. In other words, they're consciously charging people that are innocent and using the time to pretend that, oh, we're just trying to torture them, or we're just trying to discipline them with the time. We're not going to put them in jail or whatever like that. Or they put me in jail with a $500,000 bond, because those courts and their prosecutors and their kids, people that work with them, I caught them intercities on the child campus with the principal sex offender. So make sure I get a response, and make sure you don't lie about my behavior, because nature wants me to yell at you guys, and it would help America. It would shut down that fake logic. In other words, because all the evidences of it, you guys are preventing from being spoken, doing it by pretending you have journalists or whatever they're called making opinions on MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News, but they are not making honest opinions, and their delusions raw, and they are in their furtherance of fact treatment, nature oriented roles with even fentanyl. Even if they don't like it, they self-value it where and how. They need to keep using topics treatments, leaving out exception nature, leaving out where those subjects connect, the relevance of it. So make sure I get a response from someone. Here, I teach you long. Make sure someone. So I'm not being heard. Criminally foreign influence, delusions raw. Supposed to, when someone reports an act, when someone, especially like fake news acts, predicate acts, that's evidence. So these people, the president had no evidence in that context and sense, hiding it with and for the other countries. Fake news is a whole bunch of evidences. They keep wiping off what the president says and pretending other, because they're pretending it's, oh, well, look, that's what election crime said we could do. No, didn't say you could hide. You could do that in collusion with predicate acts to prevent people from having being able to communicate about what's being done to them, having been done to us, having been pretended that we did to other people. They know that's actually recorded. So you have to follow mandated law. They value mandated law, and everyone mandate. Oh, mandate. It means force. In other words, they value people, speaking about uses of it that are other. In other words, exception nature used to get over on. Exception nature's actual course. Where nothing is binary alone, as science reveals. So, in other words, nothing is true or false alone. Even when it is, exception nature is still relevant. So they want and need us to use computers. They have narratives by money, by economics that can't defend themselves and afford integrity of metaphysics. Discern how distinctly from physics, juxtaposed, how physics and metaphysics have the identity of what is hyper simultaneous, or what is simultaneous, if you won't accept that. In demonstration to it, of its increasing value, of its source of revelations. What was slavery about? When torture is simultaneous, identity theft, fraud, slander is simultaneous. How they blamed other things other than themselves, simultaneous. Where and how before our founding parents were born, that was entrenched. Roles with it were forced. Everyone was a slave. If someone tried to fight with that, and so that was sensed. There was fake science. There was fake integrity of calm speech in its protraction and logic. There was fake integrity of anger and its. So they have chaos going between Russia and Ukraine and America and China and Poland. How many people, we didn't learn anything from World War I, World War II, because we weren't paying attention to the breaching method that was entrenched here or there, countries A through Z, since colonization, since before colonization. It was greater than and more finite than colonization, while completely using the remote pseudo-sophistication identities A through Z have associated with it. Recorded, having blamed other things other than themselves, really cool positive. So stop making people beg. And they have these wire crime methods where they just fabricate audio and video transcripts with the FBI and CIA because they're family members, and with the courts. You'll see with the methods they use. Follow mandated law. Who disbelieves? Follow mandated law for Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN, and for the judges on their shows. Make sure I get a response for them because they have this method too. There are proofs that there's a guy who made allegations against Judge Napolitano. That per the method where they have kids that don't even know each other, and then they use their narratives where they are victim predators, like, oh, I had it hard because I was gay or something like that. And then they pretend they know other people with those people. Like there are proofs that, God forbid, I doubt that there are proofs that they made that up. People who made allegations against Judge Napolitano. Now the proofs of it are how Fox News has been in collusion, hiding things from Judge Napolitano, with the FBI, with the CIA, hiding things with other judges, putting fake things in the databases. And that the ones that are personally involved with drugs and medicines crimes, with the doctors at Hartford Hospital, associated with it as this Leahy family. 2 people with the name Brendan Leahy, women in their family, work with a mental health department in the triage of Hartford Hospital, and a whole bunch of foreign and domestic people fabricating things, fake ties to themselves and others into databases. So make sure I get a response for them too, for the interbranch and the private tied to them, and the campuses involved. All those people, they prevent you get a response from anyone, and they keep doing these games with the people tied to them. Those intercities locations have ties to the same house/s on my street and tied to them in other parts of the city and on the streets near here, as roles with the Wethersfield Police Department with predicate acts with true time. Record them pretending other is also recorded involved with it. And with a Judge Smith, his family members, and other judges that I don't know the names of yet, like this black and white female judges involved with male and female state's attorneys with federal crimes, identity theft frauds, federal rules of evidence is crimes, identity theft fraud, slander, and physical delusions relevant. Hey! So make sure I get a response. See, Renaissance. I have no people watching here because algorithms left out mandated law. They left out the relevance of where and how corrections to the news are more important than the fake news. So please correct the fake news and report that. In other words, get them on here now to one name in sequence. Bow, fake branches fall. Build wall.